Hey everyone, this is Cameron from Renegade Animation. If you like what we do, please make sure to give us a like and a follow and a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. We are everywhere. That way, we can keep doing what we do, and that's talk about animation while having a plate of green eggs and ham. And now, on with the show.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me, as always, is the guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And yeah, this is a pretty low-key episode. We've got reviews for the Ice Age Scrat Tales and the second serving of Netflix and Warner Animation's Green Eggs and Ham. But before we get going, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the passing of the beloved comedian Gilbert Gottfried. We lost him at the age of 67. He will be missed. I think the first time that everyone in my generation was introduced to him was as the voice of Iago in Aladdin. But he's had a bunch of other voice credits too. Any that stand out to you?
That's the thing. He didn't have as many. He was in that Thumbelina film that Don Bluth made. He was in that one Christmas special for The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy as Santa Claus.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And yes, I mean, most people know him as the voice of Iago from Aladdin. And even outside of that, he has a few 80s or early 90s comedies under his belt and multiple cameos and appearances elsewhere. And while he was never my favorite comedian, he was still consistently funny when given the right jokes and the right material to work with. I was watching this one clip of him on Celebrity Squares, if anybody remembers that show, and he was a riot. I just laughed my head off every time he was the person chosen. Don't have much to add to it. It was amusing that he was one of the few celebrities to stay with the Aladdin franchise through the direct-to-video films and the TV series, which I'm not complaining. That was actually kind of interesting because most of the time even now, when you go from movie to TV show, the cast changes and such. It's just interesting to see how he was one of the few to stick with it. And I know he was in like Problem Child as well. But yeah, I'm going to miss him. He was a very unique and distinct comedian.
Absolutely. One last thing, if you've never seen the documentary Life Animated, you should definitely check that one out.
But for now, let's talk about two animated announcements that happened on Monday as of recording this. Our first look is the trailer for the now retitled Blazing Samurai film, Paws of Fury, The Legend of Hank. Well, I know a long time ago when we heard, I think it was like in 2020, that the production was back up and running. I remember you, me, and Kat were like, well, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yep.
And then just out of nowhere, the trailer dropped. It's essentially still the same thing to a degree, that it was a Mel Brooks produced animated film that was going to be a Blazing Saddles, but animated. And instead of the Wild West, it was going to be, samurai and what have you. Or like what pop culture has envisioned samurai and ninja history.
It's basically doing the opposite of what spaghetti westerns were in the 60s, as they were remakes of Akira Kurosawa films. This is like the samurai remake of a classic western.
At least it's coming out. I am definitely very interested to see how this film unfolds. I'm a little shocked it's heading to theaters. And when is it coming out? Like July? Oh, man.
July 15th.
That's a lot of competition. Isn't that when Minions, The Rise of Gru, and the DC superhero pets coming out?
Oh my God, you're right. July just turned into a bloodbath.
Yeah. And, that's when the new summer season of anime starts as well. So
something I like about this trailer, and even if it's not throughout the whole thing, at least like the first 20 seconds, it has this really cool pulpy comic book aesthetic to one of the flashback scenes. I kind of hope like the rest of the movie is as experimental with its visuals.
I hope so too. That was actually a nice little surprise, because then when we got to what the actual film will look like throughout most of the runtime, and it looks fine. It's fine. I'm not going to say it looks cheap. We've seen what cheap looks like this year with that Russian Pinocchio film.
Oh God.
That I'm still contemplating if we're ever actually going to talk about it or not.
For 45 million, this looks appropriately budgeted.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how much of that went into animation and then how much of that went into the celebrity voice cast, because it still has Michael Cera, Samuel Jackson, Ricky Gervais, Mel Brooks, George Takei, Gabriel Iglesias, Jimon Honsu, Michelle Yao, Kylie Kuyoka, and Asif Manvi, and then Kathy Shim. And I'm not going to say it's the best trailer. It's just a confusing movie in a lot of ways, because it's based on Blazing Saddles, the iconic Mel Brooks comedy from 1974. And the entire point of Blazing Saddles was to demystify and take out the fantasy of what Westerns were portrayed in back during like when John Wayne was the biggest star in the world and what have you. And when Westerns were coming out left and right, as much as, comic book movies are today. And it was also like the humor was very specific, because it was like specifically pointing and taking the power away from all the racist white people in the movie. So what's the angle here with Paws of Fury? Or is it like one of those spoof movies where like Hot Shots, where it makes fun of a specific movie or something like that? Because otherwise, Paws of Fury has a very basic samurai story thing. A wandering samurai walks into a village. The village is overrun by an evil tyrant, and it is up to him to save the day.
I think the best case scenario is they're hiding all the best jokes in this trailer, partially because the people at Paramount have no idea how to market this.
This film was stuck in production limbo for almost like half a decade.
It was announced in November 2014.
And then, of course, the original animation studio that was making it shut down. And then Open Roads Film was going to distribute and produce it, and then they shut down. I mean, I think before they got back up and running again, but still. So it was stuck in like, well, who wants to touch it? It looks fine. I'm not really fond of half of the cast, mostly Ricky Gervais as a villain, because his voice acting was the weakest. And it also kind of felt like his recording of his lines, there's like an echo in there, or like, I don't know, something just felt off about his dialogue in the trailer. And maybe it's just a trailer thing. We've seen that happen before.
Oh, yeah.
And yet the fart joke, I get why it was there. Blazing Saddles had one. But again, Blazing Saddles was all about taking out the fantasy and the wonder of the West. And it just did that through a passive aggressive, huge fart sequence in the film. So here it's just juvenile.
Again, I trust that a lot of this trailer is just the movie being taken out of context, because we complain about this all the time, how animated movies get like really bad marketing because they're trying to appeal to kids without actually knowing what kids are into.
That's true. I'm willing to give it a shot like normal, but still, if you want, you only have one chance to make a first impression. And when you don't make it, you plant seeds of doubt. Or an LA Noir meme references, press X for doubt. I'm mixed on it. I'm not going to say it's going to be the worst. We've already seen the worst. it has to be worse than that Buck Wild film to be like anything worthwhile. I'm expecting this to be pretty harmless and just more of an interesting bit of animation history than anything substantial, but who knows? We could very well see a film that actually surprises people, but we're just going to have to wait and see.
Exactly.
And sadly, on that same day, when everyone was like, before they could really settle in with like, oh my gosh, Paws of Fury is actually coming out, Netflix was just like, drop the load. And Nimona is back up and running, now being produced and animated by DNEG and will be distributed on Netflix in 2023.
I'm still in shock that this is happening.
It's amazing. Everyone thought the film was dead because most of the big major animation studios, when they cancel a project, they cancel it. They don't touch it, or they may reuse aspects of it for future projects, but most of the time they stay dead. Yeah, I was extremely shocked. I was like, it's April. Gosh darn it. No, it's not April 1st. Oh my goodness. This is real. Netflix officially confirmed that it's real. And I'm amazed. From what I could gather, a lot of people who worked on it are actually still working on this at DNEG, even like the directors, and they're taking what was made while Blue Sky was still up and running, and they're just going to continue off of that, which cool. I think that's a very good thing. They don't have to start over from scratch. Otherwise, we might have, well, it's just been hearing about this next year instead, and it would get like a release in 2024 or 2025.
Because, animation takes a long time to produce.
I mean, like, I know a lot of people are like, well, Disney puts out a film every year. Yeah, they have like 3 or 4 films like in production, and then when the first 2 come out, they already greenlit like 4 more. So it's like multiple projects are always in production at certain levels of said production. So it's just amazing that this film was lucky enough to come back alive. And it also has like a cast where we have like Chloe Grace Moretz, Riz Ahmed, and Eugene Lee Yang. It's interesting because they must have been waiting to drop the news about this, because it just happens to line up a few weeks after Disney shot themselves in the foot when they were donating money to the Don't Say Gay bill, and the big like commotion and the walkouts and such that are so far like got Disney into more hot water than they were thinking, or more the CEO in hot water than he was expecting.
It's gotten to the point where literally nobody is happy with Chapek.
This just makes Disney look worse, because the news came out about why Nimona was canceled, because it had too many LGBT elements, which, you think after all the stories that came out about how Disney pushed back against these aspects, like with the Owl House, and then their whole trend of like, oh, we got gay characters. You see that character in the background? Way in the background? They're gay. And it's like, okay, they got one word in. Yeah, because then we got to edit it out for overseas releases because. So now it's like Netflix is going to get all the browning points and like the glory of releasing this film, and Disney just looks like utter fools. It's like when Nickelodeon, when it came out, that they turned down so many cartoons like Ed, Edd n Eddy and especially Adventure Time. And now Cartoon Network looked amazing and great, while Nickelodeon was just kind of stuck there like, well. So that's what's happening here. Netflix has Nimona now. It's getting made. It's going to be on their service.
Mm-hmm. And the directors, Nick Bruno and Troy Quayne, are also Blue Sky alumni who worked on
Spies in Disguise.
Yep. I don't think DNEG is going to be like the new Blue Sky Studios. It is cool that between this and the first of the two things we're reviewing today, this is like Blue Sky's last stand.
It really is. It's like the spirit of Blue Sky's last stand. It's just cool. And now everyone's looking at like DreamWorks, Disney, and Pixar like, so what about Me and My Shadow, Newt, and
Gigantic.
yeah, Gigantic. Or that one animated movie that Disney was making back in the mid 2000s that was like both 2D and CGI. The ball's in your court. You want to revive something and make it for theaters?
The one that I really want to see brought back to life is the movie that DreamWorks was working on with Blumhouse, Spooky Jack.
Man, like that sounded cool. What happened?
I know, right?
I don't think we even got an explanation for what happened to that one. It's interesting because I wonder if this will lead to I wonder if directors who were working at these big companies and then their projects got canceled, if they can take it to like Netflix or Amazon or something to get them finished or get them made. Because, Disney also has that Henry Selick stop motion film.
Oh, yeah. The one they were working on with Pixar that just went nowhere.
Yeah, even though a lot of the stuff that came out of it looked really cool. Then also Pixar has that film Newt. And who knows? Like sometimes a project gets canceled because it's just going nowhere or they just don't know how to make it work. Sometimes that happens. But it doesn't mean that you can't come back to it. Like maybe Edgar Wright could take Me and My Shadows from DreamWorks and give it to Netflix, or who knows, maybe DreamWorks is going to revive it now after hearing about this, because it's like one of the few films that you hear that got canceled that everyone was like, oh my goodness, you really canceled this, DreamWorks? And who knows, maybe they can, because their two films coming out this year have distinct art styles. But anyway, we're getting a little far off track. It's really cool that Nimona is brought back, and I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see if there's a trailer for it in the near future, or like a teaser, or if there's going to be something at Annecy about this. That would really stick it in Disney's craw if they were able to spill some drama and spill some tea, as they say.
I would love to see whatever sort of behind the scenes documentary they have at Annecy.
Oh, that would be fun. Also, if Netflix funded that, because, Turning Red got a production documentary, so that would be kind of cool. But speaking of Blue Sky, it's time to talk about pretty much the last thing that they made before Disney shut them down for no reason.
This is Ice Age Scrat Tales. 6 4-minute shorts of Scrat and his interactions with pretty much his adopted son.
Yeah, pretty much. And I know we keep kind of hammering that in. This was literally the last thing made by them. They did not make that Buck Wild film. They were kind of like holding on to these for a good while, actually. It was kind of interesting how long they held on to them. But with all that said, it was I liked these shorts. It's maddening that there's only 6 of them. I mean, what did you think about these shorts? There's not a whole lot to talk about them, but
the most I can say about them is they're just freaking adorable. I love the way they're animated. I love how they're basically a tribute to classic shorts from the golden age of animation. The formula of the reluctant parent / guardian looking out for the troublemaker kid, kind of like Mindy and Buttons from Animaniacs or the Roger Rabbit shorts. They're just delightful.
Yeah, they are. It's got a lot of that old school animation comedy dynamics with Scrat loves his adopted son, but he also loves that acorn. And Mother Nature just punishes him for not being there for his son. But his son, as it turns out, is also a little schemer. Half of the things come at the expense of Scrat because he's again, putting the acorn over this little baby. And sometimes it's both of them working together, like how they took care of that dodo.
Oh yeah,
with
that was
the
fun.
yeah, with the log. And the 4 minutes were definitely like the right length for these shorts, because I don't think these would have been good as like a 11-minute, like a TV show episode.
Anywhere between like 4 to like 6 or 7 minutes would have been the sweet spot for these. They never overstate their welcome. All of Scrat's scenes in the Ice Age films never had dialogue to begin with, so that wasn't anything they needed to worry about anyway. These just came in at just the perfect length.
Again, they're just so funny. I think my favorite episode was the teeter toddler, where they take care of the dodo. But I think creativity wise, I really liked Nutty Reflections.
That one's my favorite, just because of the many different varieties of reflections they could come up with.
And it gets kind of creepy when they go into like the funhouse mirror side. And at first I was like, oh man, are they actually doing this? But then again, Scrat went into space. So
yeah, so at this point, anything's possible.
Anything goes. And I loved Nut the End, which is bittersweet to see as a title. Just how they kind of replay the opening sequence of when Scrat meets the baby Scrat, but then it goes into like when Scrat grows to old age and then dies. And first off, the whole way that they were able to do that dialysis machine was so funny. I loved with the dodo and the caterpillar. And then he found out baby Scrat was essentially waiting for him to die so he could take the acorn. That is so dark. Say what you will about Ice Age and the quality of their films. We know they weren't perfect, but then again, which animation like studio is perfect if we really want to look at it? But their Scrat sequences were very funny, very entertaining.
You can tell that's where the team had the most fun, coming up with new ways to have Mother Nature torture the hell out of him.
Yeah, or just like what kind of shenanigans can Scrat do, or like how, like in I think it was Continental Drift, that Scrat was the reason why we have the continents. And these were all very cute. And baby Scrat, oh my goodness, could they have made a more adorable design with just the biggest eyes? Oh my goodness.
I was gonna say it's all in the eyes. They just suck you right in.
They do. It's like the most scientifically perfect, cute animal design. They were still able to get like a lot of that good, snappy Looney Tunes animation down. These were all just very cute. I don't really have any complaints
Me neither.
about any of them, because they're so short and they get the job done and they succeed with their job. And then, of course, they upload the actual finale to the whole Scrat saga with the acorn, with giving Scrat, like, finally he eats the acorn instead of just trying to plant it.
My favorite thing about that little short, not just because Scrat finally gets his acorn, but like everyone on Twitter was sharing it and getting sentimental about it. That was very interesting to see all of film Twitter united by this clip.
Yeah, and whether they were saying like, oh, it's a happy ending, or some people were saying it's a little more bittersweet, which I kind of get. Like, it is a happy ending for Scrat. It is like a very joyful send-off to the many talented people who made these films for Blue Sky. But I also understand how it can be like looked at as like, man, this is really just maddening that Disney just shut them down for really no good reason.
And supposedly Blue Sky was like one of the few animation studios on the East Coast, which makes things even more frustrating.
You wonder if they could ever, like a lot of the founding members of Blue Sky, if they could make a new studio or something, because I feel like that would be really neat.
Something independent, specifically for people who don't want to move all the way out to LA.
Yeah, LA or Florida in some cases. And not have to worry about outsourcing jobs as well. It is a shame. Like, these shorts are great, but it is like a very tough pill to swallow that it's like, well, that's it. And now Disney's going to just milk the IP of Blue Sky by making a ton of terrible direct-to-video looking movies. Joy. It's tough, but I hope the best for all the animators and the people who worked at Blue Sky. And hopefully a lot of them are still working on Nimona for next year. Yeah, I mean, that's all I have to say. Just good job, Blue Sky. Congrats, Scrat. You finally got your acorn. Your legacy will be remembered.
Indeed. And now we move on to, honestly, one of the biggest surprises in recent memory. We are talking about Green Eggs and Ham, the animated series from Netflix and Warner Animation. I have been wanting to talk about this show ever since like season 1 came out back in 2019. At the time, you and I were like the only ones who were really just obsessed with this show.
I remember you and I were one of the few people who delve into the pool of Netflix adaptations because, let's be real, I understand why people were kind of hesitant to jump in and see where all of this unfolds, because there's an extremely hit and miss track record for adaptations. Yes, the Chuck Jones adapted specials are great. They're classic. They're timeless for the most part. But then we move into everything else, and that's where the inconsistent quality comes up, because for every like something that was decent, like Horton Hears a Who, like once again by Blue Sky, then you get like The Cat in the Hat. And I know a lot of people like the Ron Howard, The Grinch, but I just don't. I'm not sorry about that.
I'm in the same boat. Jim Carrey is great, and the makeup is like top shelf, but the movie it doesn't hold up.
No, it doesn't. And then Illumination had their chance at making good adaptations, and we got the Lorax, which butchered its entire moral and message. And that's still, to me, the worst Blue Sky animated film. And then they tried again with their last Dr. Seuss based adaptation with The Grinch.
I actually really like The Grinch.
I mean, I like it. I'm not going to say I love it, but I do like it. I wouldn't mind watching it, but so far, no streaming services are carrying the film. So I'm just kind of like, am I really going to buy it? I just can't justify it. Just because there are just some things about that movie that bug the heck out of me, but it's more just the Illumination story execution. So I understand, like, everyone was kind of weary about Green Eggs and Ham. It's like, okay, the specials were already stretching a 20-page book to its limits, and Netflix wants to make a TV series about Green Eggs and Ham. Okay. They actually advertised the show, and then they also got like big names like Michael Douglas, Adam Devine, Keegan Michael Key, Diane Keaton, and Lana Glazer. And yet it was one of the biggest surprises of 2019. And 2019 was a very big year for TV animation in general, because that's when we got Disney's Amphibia. That was when we got the first and second season of Infinity Train. And then we have this. And it just kind of proved that, like, 2019 was a pretty good year for animation if you judge it based on those alone.
Oh, yep.
And so we're just going to talk about season 1 first, which is based off of the Green Eggs and Ham story, where there's a chickaraf, a special or endangered animal. You find out that Sam I Am, a very happy-go-lucky enthusiast of Green Eggs and Ham, breaks into this zoo and steals the Chickaraf and is planning on taking it to a different city to a collector for Mr. Hervinnick Z. Snurs, who's voiced by Eddie Izzard. Along the way, Sam meets Guy Am I, a very grumpy, disgruntled individual who wants to make it big as an inventor, but his one flaw is that his inventions keep exploding. No real reason or explanation of why they do, but they just do. He's voiced by Michael Douglas. So after another failed invention fiasco, he bumps into Sam and they accidentally take each other's suitcases. And of course, Guy ends up with the Chickaraf. And the two of them go on an adventure to take the Chickaraf back to its home while being chased down by Snurs and his one bounty hunter, and then these two government officials who are chasing after them, who are voiced by Jeffrey Wright and Jillian Bell. It ends up being is that every episode is based on a certain sequence of the Green Eggs and Ham storyline. So like the whole scene with like, will you eat it with a fox? Well, they encounter a fox who is essentially the protector of these hens that lay green eggs. And I thought that was kind of clever. Like I was a little worried at first with each episode being 30 minutes because it was like, okay, so like, would you eat it in a house with a mouse? So the mouse will be this essentially Les Miserables style revolutionary character voiced by Daveed Diggs, which I thought was kind of humorous. And I love Daveed Diggs. So, and of course, it is an actual Les Miserables reference.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just saying, oh, it's just like that. No, it's essentially that. I mean, like, what did you think about this story approach to like how they broke up every episode to be a different section of the Green Eggs and Ham story?
I think this is actually the best way to adapt a Dr. Seuss story. What they did is, unlike old adaptations where they would just kind of make up a story and then kind of force the adaptation in like the back half of the movie, that's like really how the Grinch Stole Christmas did. This takes like the skeleton of the book and fills in the gaps with a more exciting story. It expands on the book in a way that's more fun and not just cheap pop culture references.
Right. It's like they had a reason and substance behind every stop that they made.
And even then, they still managed to get like some really funny Easter eggs for Dr. Seuss. One of my favorite jokes is when Guy and Sam ditch their car in the lake.
Oh, yeah. When they ditch the car in the lake, they encounter the one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish Dr. Seuss reference, which I thought that was just great. I loved, it's like, and nobody got hurt. And then you hear crying in the background as Sam is like, yeah, nobody got hurt. It was very cute and it was very creative with how they made these characters work. Like Sam is very happy-go-lucky, but it's more of a persona than who he actually was, because he's an awfully lonely individual.
That's why he has like all the different aliases.
I was really impressed that season 2 brought that back. I thought that was very cool. And I liked Guy's arc as well, where he's more just, he feels like he's been trying his whole life to make something for himself, and yet it keeps metaphorically and literally blowing up in his face. And he's pretty much defeated because he feels like a failure. Well, it's like he doesn't want to try anything new. And then that's how they kind of fit in the whole conflict of, will Guy eat green eggs and ham throughout the whole series? And they keep finding creative dishes and ways to serve green eggs and ham. And it's also got like a very like overarching story or theme of just like found family,
which they do expand on great in season 2. But another thing I like about season 1 is they have a really good twist towards the end of the series. The first one, which I thought was just almost genius, was the bad guys. We think for the longest time that they were working for Snurs, but it turns out they're actually the heroes of the story.
Yeah, I thought that was very creative. And it is funny that they're like, oh, no, bad guys is an acronym for Bureau of Animal Defense, Glurfsburg Upper Yipville Section. And even like the characters say like, that's a terrible title. That's another thing about this show. It has a very natural humor to it. It never felt like it was too much. Now, Sam I Am could get a little grating, but a lot of the humor was more like it was reliant on the situation at hand than trying to shove in like pop culture references like that Lorax film saying like, aren't you kids doing the disco or playing that Donkey Kong? And it's like, I have so many questions about that line. And I think a lot of the humor works, though. It's very goofy, but it's well written in that regard. It's not just throw everything at the screen and hope it sticks. They worked on these jokes.
Even the narrator is a lot of fun. I'm always a big fan of narrators who kind of are a little bit more involved with the story. And Keegan-Michael Key, he could read the phone book and make me laugh, but he really gets to play around with the material as much as he can, and it's just a delight.
Also, this first season has an agenda against cantaloupe. It's one of the few reoccurring jokes throughout the first season, and they're just like, cantaloupe, that's the garbage fruit. It's always the one taking up room in the fruit salad. Or they have like little gags that I think are just kind of random, but random in the sense that the punchline is unexpected. Like when they're at the carnival and these cops are coming up and they're just yelling like out in the open, like, we're cops. And then they stop and you think like, oh no, they spotted Guy and Sam. And then they're just like, we're cops. And they just keep walking. I thought that was very humorous. Or like Mick Winkle, Jeffrey Wright's character, just every time where he feels like, okay, this is my last meal, my last job. I'm going to do this. And then like one more thing gets in the way and his fur turns white.
Oh, yeah, I love that too.
And Gluntz, his assistant, who's voiced by Jillian Bell, she's definitely hyper, but there's definitely more to her. Like she's more the extreme of the good cop, bad cop situation.
And also, she's another one of those comedians who just anything that she does will make me laugh.
Right. Nah, she's great. I mean, the voice cast is great in general, and they also have like a lot of other big people. Like John Turturro is the goat. Then the fox is voiced by Tracy Morgan. Like we said, the mouse is voiced by Daveed Diggs. D. Bradley Baker voices the Chickaraff. I was not shocked about that because, I mean, it's D. Bradley Baker. He's one of the few people you can get to do animal noises.
Yeah, it's him or Frank Welker.
Frank Welker, Fred Tatasciore, or Matthew Mercer. Throughout the whole show, you'll hear like Keith Ferguson pop up, Nika Futterman, Joe Hanna, Chris Diamantopoulos, David Kaye, Hayden Walsh. Who else is here? Bob Joles, Brad Abrell, David Pressman, Jill Talley. Rob Paulson appears a couple times. So does Jeff Bennett and Carrie Walgren. Oh, and Billy Eichner shows up also. He's the guy who plays Captain Big Man, the boss to
oh yeah. And
it took, well, first of all, I love that he's called the Big Man, even though it's like tiny. And then that whole sequence where he's just like, I'm hanging up the phone, and then just slams the phone down. Eddie Izzard is funny. I think she does a great job as the villain. Very pompous, very arrogant. Obviously, the reference and inspiration is taken from you know who in terms of the design and the mannerisms. And just, I will say, I think my favorite thing about Snurs is the fact that all the animals that are mounted on the wall are not actually dead. They're just animals that just have to stand there. And like I love when it's just like every time Snurge would walk away, they're just like, oh gosh, this is the worst. And then Snurge comes back on into frame and then they smile again. And it reminds me of this joke from the first Leisure Suit Larry game where there's a moose mounted on the wall, and then you go into the next room and the rest of the moose is there. And then there's also the B plot, which is about EB, who's voiced by Ilana Glazer, and her mom, Michelle, who's voiced by Diane Keaton, who's, the kind of typical overly protective mom. I do love that they take the whole term of like, oh, they're just a bean counter or a pencil pusher.
And they take it literally.
I feel a lot of people would be like, oh, I could do that. And then it's just like, dude, that would get so boring so fast. Which is the point, because, they have these soul crushing jobs. And a lot of the show is about being adventurous. Do you have any other like favorite gags that you saw throughout?
I think we went all of the major ones.
Well, there was one when they're on the train and Guy goes into that one, the model train room.
Oh, yeah.
And it gets really meta of where he sees a smaller model of the train that they're on. And then he sees like himself there, and it turns into like that, those mirror sequences where it's like just reflection upon reflection upon reflection. I thought that was very cute. And like we talk about this show and we're thinking like, oh, it's constantly like funny and energetic. It does take time to have a few like more calm jokes and have moments for the characters to breathe and to talk and such. Like when Guy and Michelle meet each other on the train, I thought their chemistry was great with Michael Douglas and Diane Keaton. And after a little bit, Adam Devine as Sam does get better.
The actual bond that Guy and Sam form is one of the show's strongest elements.
Yeah, it is. And like it does hit on some emotional moments, like Guy feeling like a failure when they were dealing with those not chickaraffs. I forgot what they were called. And then like when Sam meets Guy's family and just how the family's like super successful. One of them is a literal breadwinner. Again, these gags are so good. And like Guy feels like a failure, even though his family does not see him as a failure. It's interesting. It's that the new trope of animated shows or films, generational trauma and pressure.
This kind of feels like the opposite of that, where it's like they don't feel like Guy is a failure at all, even though they're all like very successful in their own ways.
And it gets pretty entertaining, and it does have like a good climactic like end result for season 1, where they do get the Chickaraff away. Snurz is sent to jail. And Guy finally tries green eggs and ham. Another little gag I liked was when they were saying like, okay, we only have half of this coin, so just give us a half order of everything. And it's like a literal half cup of porridge. And it just like falls out because, it's a half cup of porridge. What are you expecting? The show is so much more creative. Like the team behind this show, like Jared Stern and the team that made it, definitely had like the right idea about how to tackle this. It really wouldn't have worked.
Yeah,
and
well, this team, they cracked the code on how to adapt a Dr. Seuss book in a way that expanded the material without deviating from the message.
Right, which is be adventurous, try new things. Even after watching these 2 seasons, I am still amazed and impressed with what they were able to do. This wasn't just WB had the rights, so they were going to make this and what have you. They said, we have an idea, let's do it. And while their theatrical animated stuff is maybe not panning out as much as we all hoped it would, their TV stuff is definitely getting better results. And maybe it is just because, hey, it's a TV show, you can expand upon it a lot more. We get to season 2 of Green Eggs and Ham, which, yeah, it's a little weird that it's still called Green Eggs and Ham, but since it still has Sam and Guy as two of the main characters. I'll ask you a question about that as we get into season 2. Instead of just trying to rehash or do something that was familiar because it worked out for the first season, they loosely adapt the Butter Battle book, which is definitely like something at first I was like, okay, that's interesting. And yet you think it wouldn't work, but it does work.
Now the espionage and 007 homages make a lot more sense given the inspiration for the original book, how
Yeah.
it's clearly an anti-war story written during the Cold War. You got like a Cold War allegory mixed with the classic 70s 007 films. Everything comes together. And again, this is the team knowing exactly how to handle the material and have fun with the episode titles, which are all kind of plays on popular espionage films. Like the Mom Identity is obviously the Bourne Identity. Tinker Tailor Mother Spy. I don't think I need to explain that one.
Yeah, Golden Guy. 3 Days of the Mom Door. To Yukiya with Love. You Only Mom Twice.
Skyfall.
The Sam Who Came In From the Cold. On Her Dukas Secret Service, or The Mom Who Loved Me. Very clever. I think that's very cute. So the plot of season 2 is that Sam thinks he knows where his mom is, who you find out in season 1 abandoned him. And you find out in season 2 that's because his mom, Pam I Am, is a spy who is trying to get this Mu Laka Mu thing away from one country to use it on the other. I mean, we'll get into that. If you know about the original Butter Battle book, then I think you'll understand what the Mu Laka Mu represents.
Yep.
And Pam I Am is voiced by Patricia Clarkson, and she's great. And then it's like, this is where I was a little worried about what was going to happen, because for the most part, separate Sam and Guy to have their own story arcs instead of having them together, which on one hand, I get it. And I do think it works. I think it was the right decision, because what could they do together that would be substantial? Instead, Sam goes with his mom, Pam, to get the Mu Laka Mu, while Guy and Ibi are in...
They end up in Zukia,
where Guy ends up making inventions for the Zukia people. And for the Dukas, which I'm sure they mean Duchess, but Dr. Seuss. She's voiced by Rita Moreno. And that was very nice. I like Rita Moreno.
Same.
Then we get into some of the darker aspects of the season, which a lot of it is about Pam I Am coming to terms with just the fact that she abandoned Sam, but more so with Guy and Ibi, because Guy ends up getting, well, for lack of a better term, brainwashed by the Zukia, I mean, let's call it what it is, propaganda about Yukiya and how Yukiya is the worst place ever because they have their butter on their toast right side up, which, the most shocking and monstrous thing you can ever think of course. And while the Zukiyas have their butter toast side down, which, how is that supposed to work? But no, but that's me overthinking it. And it's all about how political propaganda can be very manipulative. And Guy is the one who essentially falls for it. Well, Mike, what happened for Ibi?
Well, she meets a boy. Basically, their story is a riff on Romeo and Juliet or West Side Story, where they pretty much tell the audience, hey, your war is stupid and you're fighting over literally nothing.
Seriously. The boy's name is Luca, who's voiced by Darren Criss. It was very cool. It was a very clever way to get EB a little more to do in the plot than just to follow her mom around, and to be the one to find out firsthand how not very different the two nations are. Like, what did you like about this scene?
Well, one thing I really liked was the fact that even though the characters were more split apart, it gave them room, literally, but narrative wise, it gave each of the characters room to have their own agency. Like, everything I like about EB in season 2 has a lot to do with her leading in dismantling this conflict between the two divided nations.
Mhm.
And also Darren Criss as Luca is just one of those characters that just oozes cool.
Yeah, very much so. It's like you look at his design and it's like, I don't know about this. And then
You gaze into his eyes and it all makes sense.
I thought that was very cute. I was a little worried because at first it seemed like, I don't know, Guy seems to be getting the shorter end of the stick here, because a lot of the first half does seem to revolve around Sam and Pam bonding again, and just the complex nature of exactly the situation that they were put in. But it did lead into some very trippy animated sequences and scenes, like that scene where Pam and Sam are getting chased by the James Bond parody, Philip Trousers, who's a vain yet very not bright spy who chases after Pam.
I love how he's such a dunce that like every single button he has to push says the only button.
Yeah, that was very funny. They get into an island area where they find out that if you go forward in time, like on one side, it's like your current day age, but you go further and then you cross a certain point, you start getting younger the further you go that way. And I thought that was very creative. And then they had a surprise appearance of a character named Bo, voiced by James Marsden.
I could have sworn that was Matthew McConaughey at first.
You kind of think they wanted Matthew McConaughey but couldn't. So they got James Marsden to do a Matthew McConaughey impression, which is very good. It's a very accurate representation of McConaughey's mannerisms and what have you.
Oh, yeah.
And it turns out to be one of the most touching parts of the overall story.
It's essentially Pam making up for lost time, all of those years that she was away from home, focusing on the mission. She basically took for granted the relationship she has with her son.
It was very touching. Like, the story was able to still keep that heart that made the first season great, despite it being only 10 episodes instead of the first season's 13. But I felt like it was paced better at 10 episodes, because then you were able to do everything. And plus, the first season was made during that time period where Netflix was like, every season needs to be 13 episodes.
I think the pacing for this season worked a lot better. I have no idea how the story would have worked if it had 3 more episodes. I feel like this story had just the right amount of time it needed.
I mean, we do deal with this with like anime sometimes, or just other series that we watch, like Infinity Train or some of the other stuff on Netflix, where sometimes they may overstay their welcome, or they run into that situation where it's like, it's really good for 10 episodes, and then it just drops the ball on those last 2. And it's just like, well, that sucks. But they were able to make a pretty much a satisfying conclusion for everyone involved. Like, if this is the last time we'll see the Green Eggs and Ham crew, but we'll have to find out about if that's the case one way or another. But it does seem kind of, this is it.
This felt a bit the end, at least for these characters.
But they were able to go out on a high note. Not many stories can say that they do. Let's talk about the animation.
Can we talk about the opening
Which one?
for a second?
You want to talk about both?
Well, I want to talk about everything about the opening. The animation is a very cool callback to like all of those 70s animated specials. And then it's also a great homage to classic James Bond themes. Just the whole package of that is perfection.
Right. No, they capture the art style of the books and the animated openings. And then, like, in the first half, that's what most of the focus and tributes is going to. And then with this new season, it definitely plays up all of the parodies that you would see in Bond and spy thriller stuff. And they do a lot of abstract visuals with the opening and within season 2. I think they dive into it more in the second season than in the first. But the fact that this was all 2D animated, I mean, for the most part, I would say it's like 98% 2D animated, while a few things here and there are CGI, which, that's fine. It's stylish CGI. And sometimes you just need to have that CGI to help with a few things.
Little touch-up work. I bet for most people, if we didn't tell you that, you probably wouldn't even notice.
A lot of people were kind of like, I don't know, like in doubt of like it being pure 2D animation. And then you watch the, like on Twitter where people saying like, hey, here's a sequence I animated. And it's like, oh my gosh, it is literal 2D animation, the hand-drawn stuff. And I know that kind of maybe gets lost under the digital coloring, but you can tell it's 2D, like in hand drawn, by the movements of like the characters, how the weight to their movements. We may have moved on from animation desks and using multi-plane cameras, but 2D is still hand drawn. Like if they say that it's 2D animated, unless it's like very specific, where it's like, oh, you can tell this was made in Flash or motion tweens and what have you. There's a certain look to 2D animation. I know it when I see it.
Yeah, basically.
And it just looks great. They were able to make the Dr. Seuss visuals and designs work, which is why you should never, ever do a live action Dr. Seuss thing again. I'm kind of glad that they stopped at 2, but it really should have been none.
Yeah, no, I think animation is the perfect medium to bring Seuss's aesthetic to life. And the way they do it here, again, just kind of perfect. The way the colors pop, the way the characters are animated, their movements, their facial expressions, it's all perfect.
They didn't need to make a lot of sacrifices of adapting the characters to 2D animation, to this new, like a more modern take on the designs. Like no one feels out of place in terms of designs. Sometimes it's not often, but there are points in shows where sometimes you spot a character and it's just like, why the heck are you designed like that? This is why design consistency is such an important thing. The visuals are just great. It all works. It's just a good show. Like it's probably one of the more underrated shows that they make, or that they have made with the Dr. Seuss brand. And it makes me curious to see what Warner Brothers is going to be doing with the upcoming films.
I'm very curious to see what Warner Brothers is doing with.
There's the Places You'll Go. And
Yep.
And for some reason, a Thing 1 and a Thing 2 movie, which I don't think that's going to happen.
We'll just have to wait and see on that one.
I'll eat my hat if they actually go through with a Thing 1 and Thing 2 movie. I think the proper way to adapt a Dr. Seuss story, if they want to, is, can you get more out of it as a TV series, like as a limited series? Or do you have a good enough angle to make it a movie? Because even like the classic specials, again, felt like they were having to stretch out the story, like with the musical sequences and what have you. But even then, like the musical sequences are why people love like the Grinch and whatnot. But here, like Green Eggs and Ham works because it has a really good story while keeping close to the original book, and it just rocks.
Yeah, I would just recommend the show to anyone because it's just great, but I would specifically recommend it to people who have been apprehensive about previous Seuss adaptations. Like, if you've been displeased with anything that's come before, then you should definitely give this show a chance. And the ironic thing is, if you don't, then that kind of defeats the purpose of the message of the original book, because the book is all about giving new things a chance.
It's just a surprise. I am so impressed with what they were able to do. And it's just another one in a long line of shows that are adapting pre-existing IP and doing something interesting with them, like with the He-Man stuff. And while we need to catch up on it, the Camp Cretaceous stuff for Jurassic World, it's very impressive. I'm just happy that this thing was as good as it was. If we don't see a season 3, I'm curious to see what happens with the movies.
Same. Now, speaking of movies, obviously, if you know me, you know what I'm about to recommend next. As we're recording this, we're still in Passover. So naturally, I have to recommend everyone check out The Prince of Egypt. I've said many times before that this is my favorite movie of all time. One reason why I have to recommend more people see this is because next year is the film's 25th anniversary, and we still don't have a 4K remaster of this movie. Apparently there was a Blu-ray that came out a few years ago, but the digital version that's now on streaming, on sites like Peacock, and I think at one point it was on Hulu. The problem I have with the digital version is I don't know how, but they really screwed up the audio. I'm hoping if there's a high enough demand for like a better remastering of this movie, we can finally restore this to its original quality.
I mean, I don't think being in 4K will solve anything. I've seen a lot of 4K films that just either botch the execution or it just didn't do anything substantial. But Prince of Egypt needs a proper Blu-ray release, like a proper remastering. I'm curious of why it just got that bargain bin Blu-ray release despite having a digital code and what have you. It's the only good version to get is probably the DVD release, released way back then. And even then, it's just it's going to not be in HD. So it's a shame that it didn't get quite the love that it should.
That's kind of unfortunate because this movie was a hit when it came out. And while its popularity has declined, it has picked up a little bit more of a cult classic status.
Yeah.
So yeah, Universal, if you're listening to this, please next year give us a proper remaster.
Right. So for me, I'm going to recommend some anime. Big shock. Because, the plan is we're going to talk about anime the whole spring season in May, the second half of May. I'm just going to keep going down the list of shows that I definitely recommend checking out during the season so far. The obvious one would be Spy X Family, but that was already going to be the big popular hit before it even got released because, it's a super popular manga. It's being produced and animated by a co-collaboration between Cloverworks and Wit Studios.
Oh, of course.
And the first episode's great. You don't need me to tell you to go check out Spy X Family, but do check it out. So I had to think about a different show that I feel could use the love. And while I've heard that the manga is popular, I don't hear a lot of people talk about it. And maybe it's just that's my circle of people I talk with that don't bring it up. But I'm going to recommend Shikamori's Not Just a Cutie. It's a romance rom-com anime about this high school sweethearts. The guy is the sweetest cinnamon roll that you could ever think of. And yet he is cursed with the worst luck in the world. Like anything bad that could happen does happen to him. And Shikamori, the female lead, is cute. She's, an anime girl. They make her the most like eye-catching character that you can think of.
Of course.
But the twist is she is not just cute. She is tough and awesome individual, and she has a tougher side to her. And that's what makes her boyfriend like just fall in love with her more. And then she's also like, I'm super tough, but I do want to come off cute for my boyfriend. And then that's where the comedy ensues. That's where the dynamics like come together. And of course, with the other characters that are in the show, which is funny because the boyfriend's best friend is voiced by the same Japanese voice actor who voices Bakugo from My Hero Academia.
Oh, that's cool.
So expect someone to be fiery and angry at all costs. Well, he's not even that. It's just he's a fiery individual. And then he also Shikamori's friend who's essentially teamed up with him, and they're both essentially on the same wavelength of just like cocky and arrogant. And it's a really cute show. I know a lot of people were kind of not impressed with the first episode. Even if a show doesn't reinvent the wheel, as long as it does what it sets out to do well, that's all that matters. I think we put a lot of emphasis, maybe too much emphasis, on like, I want to see something original and something I haven't seen before. And that comes at the cost of, that means you're going to miss over a lot of good stuff that may not cause the industry to change, but is still a really good show. And that's all you need sometimes. You just need a really good, well executed show.
Yeah, you're not always going to find a Michelin 5-star restaurant in your backyard. Sometimes it's perfectly okay to just have a really good pizza.
Well, if you have a 5 Michelin star restaurant in your backyard, I want to know where you live. That's where it is at all times. But yeah, I recommend Shikamori's Not Just a Cutie. I had a few others to choose from. I was going to go with Diamond, but I already recommended that, even though it probably would have fit the overall episode better with Found Family and such.
And I know we promised that we were going to talk about My Neighbor Totoro this week, but we figured it was better if we saved it for next week since we have a little bit of a lighter load.
Talk about that next time, because then we will also be talking about The Bad Guys, DreamWorks' newest movie,
which I'm very excited to finally see. But
yeah, same here.
Until then, Cameron, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Cam's Eye View. I run my own website called camseyeview.biz, where I review animated shows and films from around the world called The Other Side of Animation. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/camseyeview. If you like my work and want to support me in some way, shape, or form, you can go there.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can find me on all the various Facebook groups just at my name. You can check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us on Podchaser and the Banana Meter. Listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.